Hi, my name is Haley Briggs and I'm the student coordinator of the University Writing Center. Today we're going to learn about Turabian formatting. Okay, so the first thing that you need to know about Turabian formatting is that just like any other style of academic writing, it calls for 1-inch margins all the way around, and the font should be 12-point Times New Roman. So other than that, you're ready to begin, and the first thing is that it also calls for a cover page. And so the cover page includes 4 things. The first is your title, and then towards the bottom you'll see your name, your course name and number, and then the date. And the date should be formatted into month, day, year form. The second thing that you want to do for Turabian formatting is insert your page numbers. So you might notice that on the title page you do not have a page number, and that can be kind of tricky for students to make happen when they actually open their documents. So the first thing you want to do is go to your title page, and you'll double click at the top to open up your header footer options. And the first thing you need to make sure is done is that this different first page option is clicked. So you have to click that box, or else you'll have a hard time getting the page number to delete on the first page. So once that box is clicked, you're going to scroll down to the second page. And once you've got to the first page of your text, you'll click in the header and you'll come to page number. So you're going to insert a page number, and it should be top of page, right alignment, and you'll open up this box that says format. And once the format box is open, you have to make sure that this little box here says 0. And that's just going to ensure that the first page of your text is page 1 instead of page 2, because it will try to count the title page. Okay, so you'll see that the page number does start at 1 on the first page of the text, and that should be all that you will need to do if you're working on a PC. However, if you're working on a Mac like I am now, it might still show this 0 at the top. And so all you have to do is click on it, delete it, and then when you scroll back down, your 1 will still be there, so you'll be set to go. Okay, so once you have your page numbers inserted, you might notice that Turabian calls for these funny things called subtitles. So like most papers, you will have your title at the top centered, and Turabian says that you need to bold that title. But then throughout the paper, you also get to use subtitles. So this example paper has a subtitle here, but it also has a second subtitle to show the difference in chapters. Most academic papers that you'll be writing, you'll only need to have 1 subtitle, and the way you format that is you just center it and bold it. So subtitles are great. They allow for smooth transitions. And yeah, all you do is center and bold. So whenever you're quoting from a source and the quote that you are using is longer than 4 lines, you have to format that as a block quote, which basically means that you just tab all of that quote over 1 line. And so the way that you do that is simply push the tab button on that first line like so, and then you'll come down to your second line and push the tab button again. So notice this is a very long quote. It's longer than 5 lines. And so I tab over that whole section, and also I make it single spaced, but it still remains Times New Roman 12. The last thing that you'll notice is that block quotes do not use quotation marks. You simply just put the quote and you put your footnote at the end of your quote. Okay, so whenever you're writing a research paper in Turabian and you're using outside sources, you're going to reference those sources in a different way. So typically, students write in MLA, and you will cite those sources in parenthetical citations. And there is a way to do that in Turabian, but you only use parenthetical citations when a professor requires them. So if you need help with those, feel free to come by the Writing Center and we can help you format those. But the typical way to format a source in Turabian is by using footnotes. So you notice at the bottom of the page, there are several references, and for each book or article that you reference, you will have a full footnote for those sources. So what you'll do whenever you're quoting or paraphrasing something is you'll click at the end of the sentence that you're wanting to reference, and after your cursor is right after that period, you're going to come up to the top and you'll click on the References tab. So once that tab is opened, there's an option that says Insert Footnote, and you're going to insert it, and you notice that a little footnote appears at the end of your sentence, and it also drops a footnote down to the bottom of your screen. So it's super simple, saves you a lot of time, and once that number is dropped to the bottom of your screen, you're going to move your cursor in front of that number, and you have to tab over once. So you're going to format your footnotes in the same way that you would a paragraph. The first line is indented and all of the other lines are not. So once you have that number indented, you'll move your cursor back to the right side and you will insert your footnote material. And I had mine copied so it messed up a little bit, but there we go. Okay, so once you have your footnote there and it's tabbed correctly, you'll notice that there are several things that are different from that of a bibliography reference. And they're just minor changes. So a footnote includes all of the same information that you will also need to include on your bibliography page. The information is just formatted differently. So you'll notice that the name, the author's name, is in first name, last name style instead of last name, first name. And then after the name, there should be a comma instead of a period. So essentially you're taking out all of the periods and replacing them with commas. So you'll separate the author's name, the title, the publisher, the volume number, all of those things will be separated with commas. And then at the end of your the end of your footnote, you'll include the place of publication and the date that it was published in parentheses, followed by another comma, and then the page number that you're referencing. One of the things that students struggle with the most when writing in Turabian format is using the footnotes. And so the biggest problem or the biggest struggle for students to get by is, what do you do when you quote or paraphrase from a book more than once? Do you insert the whole footnote again, or is there an easier way to do it? And the answer is there's a much easier way to do it. So I'm going to show you a few examples. We just went over how to insert a footnote, just a standard footnote, and we use that here when I paraphrase this source. So my footnote 2 has the full footnote reference. It has all of the information about the book that I was using. But then up here, I decided I'm going to quote from that same source again. And since I'm quoting from the same source immediately after I had just used that source, we're going to use this abbreviation IBID period. And that just means I'm using all of the same information as I did in my previous footnote. The only difference is, while I'm quoting from the same source, I'm quoting from a different page number. And so since I did that, I have to put my new page number here. So I put IBID period, comma, and I put my new page number followed by a period. Had I quoted from the same page number I had just quoted from in the footnote above, all I would put is IBID period. And again, the only time you will use that abbreviation is if you're quoting from the same source directly above your new footnote. So for an example, after I quote from that source, I quote it again from the same page number. So I put IBID period, but then I quote from several other sources. And so I have to bring in my new footnote material. However, on my last page, I'm quoting from that source that I just showed you. But since I have quoted from several other sources between that original footnote, I have to add the author's last name. So I can no longer put IBID because up here, I'm using a different source. So instead, I just put the last name of the author that the source refers to. So here, Charles. And then I put a comma with my new page number there. And you'll follow that same pattern with every source that you use in Turabian. Now that you know the basic formatting tips for formatting footnotes, you'll just want to notice a few differences between the footnote and the bibliography reference. So notice that the footnote is in Times New Roman 11-point font. It is also single spaced, but when you scroll down to your bibliography page, we're going to look at the same source. So here it is also single space, but it's in Times New Roman 12. And it's going to be formatted a little differently. So you'll notice that the author's name is in last name, first name order, just like a typical works cited page. Then comes the title, and all of these things are going to be separated with periods instead of commas. So there's a period in between each of the different pieces of information. And then at the end, there's no parentheses around the date or the place of publication, and all of the transitions are capitalized. So for example, the editor, the E in edited will be capitalized instead of lowercase. So there's just a few little changes, but our packet that explains the Turabian format is very clear on those changes and differences. So feel free to come by and visit us for one of those as well. So like I mentioned earlier, your bibliography is also going to be single spaced. Notice that there's just one space inserted between each of the sources, and you just do that manually using the insert tab. But other than that, your references will be ordered alphabetically by author's last name and Times New Roman 12-point font. Okay, so that should be at least enough information to get you started on writing your Turabian paper. If you do have any other specific questions, please feel free to visit our website. Our link is in the description of this video, and there you will find a packet that explains Turabian in further detail, and it also will provide you with a sample paper and a template. So yes, I hope that this information was helpful. Please subscribe to our channel, check us out on social media, and stay tuned for further writing tutorial videos. Thanks!